15th, and this is the Transportation, Airports, and Public Works Committee meeting. Our goal is to ensure excellent infrastructure that is well maintained and operated. I am Stephanie Hancock, council member for Ward 4, and I am the chair of this committee. Along with me is council member and vice chair Françoise Bergan and council member Angela Lawson. We welcome you to the meeting this afternoon. Thank you so much for everyone being here. Looking at our current agenda, you should all have received the packet, or you're on eScribe so you can follow along. We don't have any consent items unless there's one that I was not made aware of.
Not from staff.
Okay, so seeing none, we will move forward to the general business. Item 3A, Connecting Aurora Multimodal Transportation Master Plan Update, with our staffs and our speaker, Keith Brosheim, project manager.
Chair Hancock, may I just make one point?
Yes, please.
I don't see our minutes.
Yes, so the meeting was on February 1st, and we have not gotten the minutes updated yet. We'll have them with the next packet.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Catch, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Hancock and a member of the committee. My name is Huiliang Lu. I'm a principal transportation planner with planning department. We're very pleased to provide the initial project update for the city's very important first ever citywide multimodal transportation master plan. This project is managed by both planning and the public works departments, and Carly Campuzano from Public Works and myself are the co-project manager. City staff and the consultant team has been working very hard, has been busy since the project was kicked off last September. So today I'm going to introduce the consultant project manager, Keith, from HDR to make the presentation for the committee. So I'll turn this over to Keith.
Thank you, Huiliang. It's a pleasure to be here. Like Huiliang said, my name is Keith Borsheim. I am a transportation planner with a consulting firm, HDR, and representing a large team here from the consulting community that we've brought to the cities, to the city today and for this project. So I'm really happy to be here. I am an Aurora native, proud graduate of Overland High School. So happy to be here helping to plan for my hometown. So I'm going to try to share the presentation. And is that working for everybody?
Looks good.
Okay. Okay. So today we would just want to give a general overview of the scope of work for the project and answer any questions about what we've done so far and kind of where we're headed this spring. The big thing that we're trying to accomplish this spring is our first engagement milestone. So we'll talk a little bit about that today, but first I just want to give you a general project overview. This project is funded through a DRCOG TIP grant award. It's a $3.2 million budget. $650,000 worth of that came from the city approximately, and the other came from various federal and state funding mechanisms. Again, I'm with HDR. Huiliang mentioned we did kick off in September, and we really got underway in October, and have been working hard to create the project identity and logo and on the existing conditions analysis, which I'll touch on a little bit here. In the meantime, also, we have been creating the engagement framework. And so I mentioned that first engagement milestone that we'll touch on a little bit later here. So here is the project logo and identity. We landed on calling the project Connecting Aurora. It really kind of captures what we're hoping to accomplish with the future state of the transportation system in Aurora, which is to connect people and connect places. And then, of course, a big focus of this transportation master plan is helping Aurora to create a more multimodal transportation system. So that's why we're calling it our multimodal transportation master plan. The main purpose and goals of the project are to create a citywide vision and goals, and that's really our goal here is to be consistent and supportive of the community values developed during Aurora Places. That's the really foundational document and kind of our guiding light for this project is the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan. And we really want to be forward-looking and innovative. A lot has changed in the transportation industry over the last 20 years. And with this being the city's first ever citywide transportation master plan, it's an opportunity for us to look forward and how we can improve the quality of life for everybody in the city moving forward. We want the plan to be adaptable and responsive as well. Once you've created a transportation master plan, it will be important to update it frequently as things change. And things seem to be changing faster and faster in transportation these days. We want to create an integrated multimodal system and focus on complete streets, providing complete streets so that people can use our streets no matter how they choose to move around. Key factor here will be engaging residents as well as businesses and key stakeholders. And so that's part of that engagement plan that we're currently putting together. We also want to create a unified mechanism that will guide policies, programs, standards, and guidelines, as well as the projects for all modes. So that'll be a key outcome is that mechanism of how city staff can help move the city forward on a better trajectory here. As new developments come in, we can lean on these new standards that we're hoping to create as part of this project. We'll also be creating a capital improvement program that will have near-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies, projects, and also be identifying those funding and responsibilities. And a key outcome here will be integrating this into the performance tracking systems that are being created as we speak, and working within that strategic framework so that we can track our progress towards our citywide vision and goals. So that's the overall summary of the project. I just want to walk through fairly quickly here the scope. So right now we're in the discover phase. It's the first of 4 phases of this project. We have a discovery phase, a synthesize phase, a visualize phase, and a realize phase. Within this discovery phase, we'll be creating a state of the system report that incorporates all of the existing conditions analysis on things from traffic and safety to what the bike network looks like and what the walking network looks like, as well as transit and transit ridership and usage and how well the system is serving transit needs. A key part of that state of the system approach or state of the system report will be a look at future trends and analysis. So how much more is the city going to grow? And how will technology evolve over the next 15 to 20 years, and how that might impact the things we do on the transportation side. After that, we'll go into the synthesize phase. That's where we take all of that information and start to create our citywide vision and goals and objectives. And really the focus there is going to be on what are our shared values and our shared priorities as a city, and how can we incorporate that into this vision moving forward. And that really sets the foundation for what the policies, programs, and projects are going to be, and helping to identify how those can help meet those goals. We'll conduct a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges analysis as part of that, so that we're going in eyes wide open about where we have issues and where Aurora really has some strengths that we can build on. Part of this will be looking at different scenario developments or scenarios, how the growth occurs and how we address that growth. And then also within the established parts of the community, how can we change the way people move around or build on the strengths within the community for how people move around. Into the visualize phase, we'll develop multimodal networks for all the modes and ways that people move around the city. And we'll start to develop those projects that will help us achieve those and create those multimodal networks. Then at the end of the project, we will be creating the policies and programs that help us implement the plan and creating what we're calling a transportation information system. So city staff and others can go and look at what the city currently has as far as its infrastructure assets and what we're hoping to accomplish in the future within that transportation information system. So I mentioned engagement. So during this discovery phase and really throughout all phases of the project, we'll be engaging the folks that you see here on the top, from the project management team, which includes members from various departments within the city, up to the city manager's office, and then up to, of course, city council. There will also be technical advisory committees that include folks from other departments within the city. So, life and safety or life safety department, as well as folks from other agencies such as DRCOG, CDOT, etc., RTD, who might advise this project moving forward. We're also creating stakeholder advisory committees to engage those folks throughout the course of the project. And of course, the public. And everybody that we see on this list falls somewhere on the spectrum of where we might, how we might engage them, from strictly just informing folks of what's going on with the project, all the way to empowering people to really help us create this plan and implement it in the future. Okay, so this spring we will be conducting what we're calling a Project Charrette. And a charrette really is it's a workshop essentially for us to all get together on the project team and including some of those key stakeholders and take a look at the existing conditions analysis and what we think is going to happen in the future. Start to incorporate some of the community and stakeholder input that we're starting to receive and identifying those trends and opportunities. And during this Project Charrette, we're going to come together and start to create those vision and goals and objectives. And at the end of the charrette, which is scheduled for the end of April, we will have a draft vision, goals, and objectives that we'll be presenting back to you all and to the public for your consideration. A bit about the scenario planning. So what we're hoping to do is create several different scenarios that we'll be able to evaluate that are really based on those values that we hear throughout this engagement process this spring. Those scenarios will be evaluated and tested using travel demand modeling and other tools to see how they help us accomplish those goals. It might be something from, do we see more infill development? And it's not necessarily something that we're hoping to see, but it's something that might happen. Or do we see further spread to the east, which I think, most of us think is likely to occur. And so just testing some various inputs and how those might affect the way we move around the city. We'll present an evaluation of those scenarios and how they impact how they impact the city's fiscal situation, and how it impacts the way we move around and our overall quality of life. That'll help us get buy-in, and then it'll help us also create those multimodal networks that I mentioned earlier. So we're looking on the network side, all the various modes, from pedestrian, bicycle, transit, and then including, of course, auto and freight networks as well. So freight planning, of course, in some areas of the city is extremely important and is becoming more and more important as particularly the northeast area of the city develops. And we see more warehouse development centered around the Aerotropolis area. We will conduct network analyses for all of these modes, identify specific improvements and projects. I do want to highlight one thing that we are going to be coordinating with the Adams County Safety Action Plan, which is set to kick off later this year. And we'll be incorporating those recommendations that come from that plan into this plan. And then all of this really culminates in the development of facility design standards and cross sections that will be updated for the city moving forward that incorporates all of the things that we'll learn throughout the process. On the policy and program side, we'll be focused on providing better conditions for all modes. And how can we really and truly improve the way the city delivers transportation services for people no matter how they move? And then we will update the current city practices and standards to reflect the outcomes from this plan. On the implementation side, again, we'll be focused on a manageable number of evaluation criteria. And one of the reasons for that is that we, as I mentioned earlier, we want this plan to be adaptable and easy to update in the future, so that city staff can work within the framework that's produced as part of this plan in a manageable way. We'll weight the criteria so that some objectives may have greater value to the community that we'll hear through our outreach and engagement. And we'll really want to target desired outcomes with those criteria. Like I said, this is a tool for the future for the city. We want this to be something that can be updated as the community's values change even in the future. All of that leads to the production of a capital improvement program or an update to the capital improvement program. How will we fund these improvements? And what kind of strategies and prioritization needs are we going to encounter? Okay, quick note here on the milestones. I'm going to pop a thing on the screen that I really don't want you guys to try to read because it's a very complex schedule. But I want to highlight a couple things here that are really focused on these major milestones. So here we are, month 3 or 4, we're starting this milestone of presenting and gathering input on existing conditions, an engagement milestone where we'll be reaching out through various public open houses, as well as an online open house to gather input on the challenges the city is currently facing. Then about 6 months later, we'll be presenting, like I said, on those vision and goals and objectives and scenario evaluation that we are working through this spring. And then about 6 months after that, we will have the proposed multimodal network improvements to present and to gather input and feedback on those proposed improvements. And then towards the end of the project, again, gathering feedback on the implementation plan and the report itself. Okay, so our next steps. Like I mentioned, the state of the system analysis and report is underway. We are drafting that currently. We will be creating that framework for the transportation information system. We will be initiating the public engagement activities that is coming up, launching in April, the very beginning of April. We are currently creating the engagement framework, which we'll be sharing with the project team very soon. And then planning for that charrette that I mentioned that is occurring at the end of April. So those are our big next steps here. And I think that is my last slide. And I know I flew through that. So hopefully we do have a little bit of time for Q&A. And I think, Hulang, you want to lead that section.
Yeah. Thank you, Keith. Thank you for the presentation. As you can see that this is going to be a very intensive, complex, and very inspiring 2-year project process. So we'll certainly provide frequent updates to the committee and also in the meantime to seek your input and directions throughout the project process. So with that, we'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
The floor is open. Does anyone have a question for the
Councilmember
presenters?
Chair Hancock, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Keith, for providing, and Hulang for providing this. I've heard this presentation before because of the transportation committees that I sit on. And I'm definitely not a transportation expert, but I do have a question for you. And maybe I missed it in the presentation. I know that you're kind of going to be looking overall for the city in terms of how people move. But are you going to be also looking maybe ward specific as well? Because how Ward 5 moves is different than Ward Northwest Aurora. The density versus what we're connected to, highways, state highways, things like that. And I'm just wondering in the engagement process and, just a person who drives through the city, it's different in different phases of the city. We're moving, but how are we moving through transit? How are we moving in general when we go from ward to ward, for example? It's a little different sometimes. So just kind of wondering, are you going to be in these engagement meetings or with the public going to also kind of maybe focus a little bit on ward specific so you can get maybe what the residents in each ward see what their challenges are versus, and then maybe combine those together with the overall of how we're moving and connecting from one place of the city to another, to outside jurisdictions, et cetera. So sorry for a loaded question.
Very good question. Thank you. I'll start and others please chime in. With this project is, with one word we always emphasize is context sensitive. So different areas are certainly different in terms of their needs, their characteristics, travel, demand. From the engagement perspective, we certainly, for the next month, April's public engagement, we specifically scheduled meeting locations in different areas for the original Aurora, Central Aurora, Southeast, because different areas have different needs and wants. In addition, our consultants are going to conduct detailed analysis for different areas. The city is just so different from the land use pattern, from the street patterns. Original Aurora, we have the grid system, but very narrow sidewalks, and Southeast are different, and the Central are also very different. So definitely we're going to look specifically. In addition to those public meetings, staff is prepared if, upon request, we'd be glad to go to your ward meetings to make presentations to collect input from the public at those meetings.
Chair, can I just do a follow-up? Just to what you said. Yeah, I understand going to the town halls, and maybe certain town halls are bigger than others, but to me, that still doesn't get to specific, to people who live in the wards. Because not everybody attends that. So it might be good for maybe a communication plan that we can give out. I don't know. I understand where you're coming from, but not everybody attends every single ward meeting. So that's my concern. And again, I understand what you're saying about Southeast, but Councilmember Bergan's area is a little different. We connect, but she's close to C-470. I'm on Parker Road, State Highway. How we move is different. And so I'm just trying to make sure when we do this transportation that we really are covering how things are transcending from, development to how we're moving in general from ward to ward and then overall. And I'm not sure, I'm not saying anything. I'm just not sure if I'm really seeing that right now, but that's just my opinion.
Let me maybe start, and maybe Keith from the technical analysis part, he can cover additional. From the engagement part, we work very closely with Judy Patterson, our communications department. We have developed a host of different ways of outreaching to people, from the water bill mail outs, from social media, from our website, newsletters. So we're going to try to cover and outreach to everybody in the city.
Vice Chair Bergan, you had a question?
I do. I also see Cindy call up. I don't know if she wanted to comment first before I do my question.
Yeah, would that be okay? Because I think not only is the engagement going to be an outreach, Councilmember Lawson, I heard you ask about the different areas of the city, and you're correct. This scope and RFP was specifically put together so that we could address the different issues within the different areas of the city. So, for example, Keith mentioned the freight and the development going on in Northeast Aurora. We spoke with Councilmember Hancock, I think it was yesterday, I can't remember, talking about how in both wards 4 and 5, we've got some really narrow sidewalks, right? Similar in Northwest Aurora. So we really want this plan to be visionary for the specific areas of the city to address those needs. To your point about Parker Road versus E470 for Councilmember Bergan. So thank you for letting me speak there.
Okay, Councilmember Bergan.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hancock. Thank you for the presentation. And when you mentioned stakeholder advisory committees, does that include the developer task force that we have as well?
Oh, gosh. I should have had that list up. I think it does. Hulang,
I was
do
just
you
gonna
happen to
say, if
remember?
it
I could
doesn't,
chime in here. We will make sure that the development community is heavily engaged in this, recognizing that it'll certainly impact our requirements and specifications. So the
and that
answer
was
is
my
yes.
point was,
Yeah.
you know, it would obviously, it'd be good to have their input before we, you know, do any kind of plan, just because it may impact them specifically from a planning perspective, but also from a cost perspective. So I would just add that as a recommendation. And then my other question kind of follows on Councilmember Lawson's. So hers was on, you know, integrating the wards, but also I think Cindy knows this with, for example, Gun Club, that, you know, a lot of the problems with that particular road has been the other jurisdictions, and then how development happens where a developer is responsible for one portion of it, but they're not building yet. Or then Arapahoe County, for example, has a responsibility. So when you do this multimodal plan, will you, and maybe it's through Dr. Cog, but will you also integrate adjacent communities?
Yes, I'll take that one. So the adjacent communities are identified on the technical advisory committee.
Okay.
And incorporating our recommendations and whatever other projects they have going on into our plan will be an important consideration as we move forward. And then I will also say that, you know, one of the key outcomes at the end of this is how do we better work as a city with those adjacent communities to make sure that those kinds of and establish policies and frameworks for us to work with those communities for those kinds of projects. So yes, I think, you know, that will be a key outcome of this project.
All right, thank you so much.
Of course.
Director Perry, you had something you wanted to contribute?
Yes, Chair, if you don't mind. We recognize community engagement is heavily important and very important to you all. And so what we will do, we will come back with more details on outreach and strategies and where and when, so that you all can see obviously the reach in the community, but also where we need to partner with you to ensure that, you know, we're coming to your town halls, the stakeholder committee, we're getting the right folks. So I wanted to add more to come on that front. This is the first, probably more in-depth conversation we've had with council on this. So more to come. We will bring that back.
Thank you,
And
Laura.
people's main concern is that they want to get the nuts and bolts of how we're moving forward in this project so that they can articulate it. Just keep it very, like I like to say, talk to me like I'm in the second grade. I want to really be able to understand it and be able to articulate it in conversations just in general. If we had, you know, escalator speech of how this is moving forward, I think that would be helpful too.
Excellent. We will work on the communication plan as well. Yep.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Just
Do we
want to add one more thing just for your
Sure.
information. We're actually in the process of a so-called co-creation of this engagement plan. We have outreached to a number of the key stakeholders in the community. We want to work with them to identify what's the best way to outreach to the entire community. So we're working with the ADA community, churches, immigrations, bicycle pedestrian advocates. So we're outreaching to all the key stakeholders now to have this co-creation effort going on. So we'll certainly come back to present the engagement plan.
Fantastic. Any other comments, questions, or inquiries? Thank you, gentlemen, very much for for the presentation today. Really appreciate that. We're going to move forward now then to our next agenda item. I think it's 3B, which is the roadway maintenance program, with our staff source, Nicholas Johnson, engineering supervisor, public works, and Michelle Gardner, senior assistant attorney.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicholas Johnson. I'm with Public Works Streets. I'm an engineering supervisor overseeing our capital improvements for the streets section. And today I wanted to talk to you all, as noted, about our 2024 roadway infrastructure program. Just some quick facts about the city. We're the third largest in Colorado. We have an absolutely incredible area of influence. And the portion that really impacts what I'm talking to you about is we have 1,365 centerline miles of roadway responsibility. And keeping that in a good condition for everyone so that we can have commerce, we can have people traveling to and from work, and emergency services getting through. Is very important to us and takes a lot of planning, as you are well aware. Our roadway network has grown considerably. I wanted to show this graphic going from about 1986 to 2020 to kind of show the major spikes in growth of the city. Around 1986, we had just under 800 centerline miles. And in 2006, we had some large adjustments to the city footprint, and we made it up to 1,173 centerline miles. And at 2020, we had reached a little steadier growth, but we were at 1,291 centerline miles. So we've had quite a bit of growth over this time. And we've had to adjust our management styles for this network accordingly, as you'll see later in this presentation. Just so you all are aware, these are two different ways of showing what our roadway network looks like. If we run it by area, which is important because that accounts for things like where we have Buckley Road with 4 lanes and a turn lane versus say Sable Road with 3 lanes in a section or 2 lanes as you get further north. So those will have different amounts of work needed to keep a stretch of road in good condition. What's a little more intuitive for a lot of people is looking at it by length, which is why we also included that here so you could see it. But either way you weight these, you'll notice that the local roadways take up the bulk of our network and are very key for quality of life around here. With that, for a brief background on pavement maintenance management, I would like to turn it over to Lynn Sinner, my deputy director here, as she has lots of insight into the history and methods that we use for this.
Thank you, Nicholas. Good afternoon, Chair Hancock and the rest of the committee. I'm Lynn Sinner. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works in charge of operations. When I was hired a long time ago with this city, I was actually hired as a pavement maintenance engineer. So this is a subject near and dear to my heart, and I have a lot of expertise in it. Well, maybe not expertise, but experience in it for sure. And I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about our philosophy around pavement management and how we arrive at the list of roads that we're going to do every year. So first of all, we do go through a process and we use a computerized system that has a predictive model in it using data that is collected. And you see one of the trucks that is used down here in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. That is collecting surface data. So the data we collect is objective and repeatable. So it is not dependent on anyone's opinion. And we can go out next week and get the same results, or a month from now and get the same results. We Our goal, can you go back, please?
Sorry
Our
there.
goal with the, that's okay. Our goal with the program is to apply the appropriate strategy at the appropriate time. And the program does generate for us a 5-year plan, but we don't take that plan and just apply it to the streets. We look at many other different factors. Sometimes we can do a little bit of extra work in one small area that's really bad that will save us from having to reconstruct the entire street. We also look at what we have planned to do and compare it to what other departments or other outside agencies have to plan to do. We work very heavily with Aurora Water and Excel and our partners at Transportation Project Delivery to make sure that we aren't on the same stretch of road at the same time, and to try to minimize opportunities for our pavement to be cut into right after we paved it. So we really work hard to try to minimize that. But all of our decisions are based on a pavement condition index or PCI. Now we can go to the next screen. So a PCI is made up of a surface condition number and a structural condition number. And I've showed you here a typical segment of a composite street. We have a base course, the pavement course, and then our wearing course. And most of our maintenance and rehabilitation strategies are focused on that wearing course. It is designed to wear out and to be removed and replaced. Overall, our the scale for our PCIs are excellent, you know, is at that 100 range, and anything below 60 is poor. And really, we're looking at those streets as candidates for reconstruction work. Can we go to the next slide, please? I just wanted to show you some pictures so you get an idea of what the different PCIs look like. So on the left-hand side is a roadway that had a PCI of 75. These are a little bit dated, so if you drive out there, it's not going to look like this right now. But this is a 75. You can see maybe there's a few minor cracks in it, but nothing really major wrong with that roadway. At a 70, we start to see more cracks. They're still pretty tight. This would be a perfect time to go in and do a chip seal or slurry seal on the street to seal up those cracks a little bit and get some longer life out of our pavement. We also start to see maybe a little bit of rutting going on. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, and as we're getting worse, we can see more cracks. They're wider. We have some pop outs. On the right-hand side, we see where some of the cracks have grown together into what we call a pattern called alligator cracking. We've had some patchwork in there. So this is the kind of street where we definitely want to get in and probably do a little bit heavier overlay or some real rehabilitative work on it. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to geek out a little bit, so bear with me. I'm showing you here the pavement life cycle curve for standard pavement. Across the bottom is the age of the pavement. Generally, unmaintained, a roadway will last 20 to 25 years. On the left-hand side of the graph is the PCI, and so we can see how the pavement condition degrades over the life of a pavement. We get our first 40% drop in pavement condition in the first 75% of the pavement life. So we can go actually a very long time before we see that first 40% drop in pavement condition. However, the next 40% drop in quality takes place over the next 12% of a pavement life. So after a certain point, that's right around the PCI of 70, at that point, the condition really starts to degrade very, very quickly. So our goal is to keep our roadway network up there in that flatter spot so we don't head off the cliff and head into pavements that are deteriorating very quickly. What we're showing here are the types of maintenance strategies that we will use at each point in the pavement's life cycle. So our routine maintenance is very early in the life. That could be as simple as going out and just filling cracks. So usually that is in the first 3 to 5 years of a life of a pavement. Then we move into preventive maintenance, and these are primarily for us our surface treatments. So our chip seals and our slurry seals. You might also hear a double chip or a hot chip, but it's all the same thing. It's a surface treatment. The goal of a surface treatment is to seal those cracks to keep the water out of the pavement and to protect that wear force from UV degradation. That usually happens in the 5 to 10 year life of the pavement. And then after that, 10 to 15, 20 sometimes, we get into rehabilitation, which is our mill and overlay, where we come in and we remove that wearing surface and we put back a brand new one. It's usually about 2 or 3 inches. And then beyond that, the street's completely gone and we have to reconstruct it. We try to stay out of that range for, I'll show you in a while why we try to do that. Can you advance this, please? So if we can spend a little bit of money when our streets are in that fair condition, we can have a really significant impact on the condition of the pavement. To get to that same pavement condition index later in the life of the pavement is going to cost us a lot more money, a lot more we have to do to that. By doing this here, we can actually extend the life of the pavement. And can we do the next one? So this is just showing you where our pavement condition has landed over the years. So in 2009, we were at about a 77, and we lost some pavement quality through the years. Last year with the Build Up Aurora program, Nicholas is going to update you on a little bit, we were actually able to raise our pavement condition overall from a 69, which is what it was in 2022, up to, we think, somewhere between 71 and 72. And I'm also showing here the current pavement conditions based on the classification of the roadway. What else do we have on this slide? Okay, so our history, as I mentioned, in 2009, our overall pavement condition index was around a 77. In 2022, it had dropped to a 69. And then with last year's effort with the Build Up Aurora program, we were able to increase our overall pavement condition index to a 71, with our target still being a 73. And what we've shown here on the right-hand side is just the history of all the work that we've done from 2007 to 2021. We don't quite have an updated map yet, but we'll get one eventually. So this is all the work that we've done from 2007 up to 2021. So as I mentioned, we have 4 major categories of maintenance strategies. The routine maintenance, again, is that crack fill, usually in that first 3 to 5 years of a pavement life. Preventive maintenance, which for us usually is just surface treatment. So that's a slurry seal, a chip seal. As I said, you might hear other terms like a hot chip or a double chip. It's all surface treatment that is usually in the 5 to 10 year of a pavement life. Rehabilitation is our mill and overlay, and then reconstruction is exactly what it sounds like. We take the street all the way down. We take off all the layers, even the aggregate layer, all the way down to native material. We redesign the street for the new traffic and the projected traffic, and we rebuild it. Very disruptive, very expensive. Can we go to the next slide? And so, as I've been saying, reconstruction is very expensive. So we wanted to show you a cost comparison between the different strategies and the reconstruction. So we try to stay, you know, in that black and light gray strategies because the reconstruction can cost 7 to 10 times more than those other strategies. So we get a lot more benefit from our dollar if we can keep our pavement in good condition where we can use the other strategies and not have to reconstruct them. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nicholas, and he's going to continue to talk about a little bit more history and then talk about this year's program.
Thank you very much, Lynn. So Lynn touched on this, the rehabilitation program. We developed that using the pavement condition index with that data that we collect. And that program, while it does put out a recommended 5-year plan, we evaluate that against ward needs, against ongoing projects with other departments, as well as utilities such as Excel, having any large projects in the area, to make sure that when we place any of our maintenance program products down, whether it's a crack seal all the way up to a reconstruct, we're making sure that we have the best life possible for that pavement. And so kind of there on the third line where it says, you know, we're applying the appropriate strategy at the appropriate time. If we do run into a issue where, say, one of the roads we would like to work on is being overhauled with a Aurora Waterline project, we do have the flexibility in our contract to say, okay, that's good. We're going to pause our work on that road and go and add another road in a similar area that needs some attention, and make sure we come back to that after that work is done. A brief history, I'm going to kind of fly through these couple of slides, but I just want to give you kind of a big picture idea of what's been happening. Before 2015, there was a kind of split in funding between our major streets, which are collectors and arterials. Those are things like Mississippi and Buckley, and the neighborhood streets, you know, the local streets. We started really diving into the PCI method in 2015, and we made adjustments to the way we weighted our program based on that with the latest information. Starting in 2016, we had some budget constraints, and the way that we were able to continue maintaining as much as we could was we maintained a very high level of service on our arterials and collectors, because those are the main nodes of commerce as well as emergency management for the areas. And then residential streets that were doing well, we kept them in good serviceable condition with surface treatments, tried to extend that life as much as we could. But we did have a few residential streets that were not in a good condition when that started. And we had to go into patching and make safe practices as opposed to preventive maintenance practices. That created a maintenance deficit in our local roadways. And it took us until about 2023 to start catching up. 2023 was when we implemented the unanimously passed certificates of participation program for roadway maintenance. Council passed that in 2022. And we used that to invest heavily in our local roadways and take care of that deferred maintenance. We also developed the transportation maintenance fund out of that, making sure that we had our projects clearly bounded within the accounts and organizations, and consolidated them so that tracking was a little easier and easier to explain in these kinds of meetings. With that, we were told to reach for a target ECI, target condition of 73 over the next 5 years. This is year 2 of that effort, and we made significant progress, as you noted, going from that 69 to that 71, 72 over 2023. And the reason that number does not sound more impressive is because the arterials and collectors were pulling that number up because of how well we maintained them, but our local roadways were suffering. So with this new initiative and continuing on after the 2023 Build Up Aurora program, we should really start noticing some quality of life improvements across all wards and neighborhoods of the city. For comparison, 2023 Build Up Aurora was an absolutely massive undertaking. We placed 246,000 tons of asphalt last year. To put that in perspective, CDOT Region 1 in their entire maintenance year placed 64,000 tons. We were recognized by the Colorado Asphalt Pavement Association for the sheer size and for the amount of public outreach. So Project Delivery Award, that accounts not just for the the size of the project, the quality of what was put down, but also the quality of resident interfacing and communication. And so we have to say thank you very heavily to Julie and the whole communications team for making sure that we could present well for these kinds of things. To give the comparison between 2023 and this year's proposed plan, we handled 271 lane miles of maintenance last year. This year is a little smaller, but still very large for a city in Colorado at 170 lane miles. And as you will notice, looking at that breakdown, a lot of that falls under the residential so that we can continue catching up on that deferred maintenance. This is a breakdown of the budget that was also listed out when we did the preparation for this. But you can expect to start seeing the bids and awards late first quarter, early second quarter, and then a lot of the work will start kicking off in the mid second quarter. With that, I'd like to open this up to questions and provide as much additional information as I can.
Thank you very much, Nicholas, for that presentation. Appreciate it. I'm opening the floor to questions. Does anyone have a question? Councilmember Bergan.
Thank you. I don't know why I actually like these presentations on the pavement condition, but I do over the years. First, on the center miles, 1365, what that doesn't include all the lanes. So is it like over 5,000? I just curiosity.
So my check for 2023 was 4,330 lane miles.
Okay.
And I think we've gone up by a couple, but I don't think we broke 5,000 yet, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and then I always ask this, and I understand, you know, that when we do the different processes, preventative versus the complete reconstruction, obviously reconstruction is extremely expensive. So when you say crack fill, that's just like the potholes, right?
It's actually even smaller than the potholes.
Or the cracks, yeah.
It's the tar that goes and follows the cracks. And what that does is that seals up the surface. Our main degradation to pavement is freeze thaw. And if we can go in and keep those cracks sealed, keep the surface clean so that we can have the snow melt run off as opposed to get in there, that actually does a lot for our longevity of pavement.
And that, I guess that's what I get a lot of questions on is, I know you guys are out there all the time during the winter and spring, but it just seems like, I don't know if it's what is the material that's used, but it just doesn't seem to last. And so I just, like Smoky Hill as an example, you guys will go out there and do that crack fill and whatever other treatments. And literally 2 weeks later, they're exposed again. And I get it, it's our weather, but is our material, do we use the same material that everybody else uses?
We actually use, our stuff is comparable to everyone. And in some cases, our pothole is a higher quality because we use the asphalt that we use and we require.
If I can jump in for a second, Nicholas.
Please.
So for potholes, you know, we actually use two different types of material. A lot of it's depending on what season we're in. So if we're in the winter season, we'll use something that is called by industry a cold patch, which it's just, honestly, it comes in a bag and we open a bag and we put it out there and we tamp it in. We view that as a temporary patch. It's something to keep it safe. We know it's not going to last very long. And that's probably what you're seeing going out right now. Right. So and then we have to do that because the plant's closed down and we can't get the hot mix and do them properly. So when the plants open up and we actually can get mix, we will go out to those areas and do a proper patch, which will cut it nice square or rectangular edges, put in hot mix, we'll roll it so that it will last a little bit longer.
Okay, so when you say you have to wait for the plant to open, so is that spring, summer?
Yeah, usually they close around November timeframe, and they usually open right around now, March or April is when they open. It's very temperature dependent on what they
Yeah.
do. So we've
So-
had a couple of winters where it's been really warm. They've stayed open a little bit longer.
Okay, so when you guys do just the cold patch, do you know, I don't know if it's in software or whatever, but you know where you've done the cold patch, and so do you automatically program that in to go back with the hot mix?
I wish that we did better with that. We try to track everything through Access Aurora, and so with that comes the original call reporting the pothole and a map. And so we do try to look at the map to see where we got calls and to try to prioritize where we go out. We right now we are waiting for some additional spot patch trucks, so I really only have like one, so we're not able to get everywhere we want to be or need to be right now. Hopefully that'll be coming, in the next month or so, and we'll be able to hit those a little bit harder.
So when we talk about our capital improvement plan, are you trying to get another truck? Because our city is growing so massively.
We have one, we have two on order. The challenge has been supply chain.
Okay,
Honestly, the chassis have been held up coming out of, I think they're Ford or something. So I know we have one that's on its way to us right now, but that's been the holdup.
okay, and then my last question, sorry, is you said our target is 73. However, in 2009, we were at 77.
Mhm.
And I think what I heard, because I was like, well, why wouldn't we want our target to be 80? But I think you're saying because we're doing the build-up Aurora with the residential roads, that eventually our target's 73, but do you see that we're going to exceed that at some point? No.
No. So we what we can do with this program is plug in our budget, and it will tell us what our pavement condition is going to be. And so that's exactly what we did here. Was we plugged in our budget, including the Build Up Aurora, the COP monies, and it gave us a program that said if you do these things to these streets at this time, you'll hit a 73 within 5 years. Very much this program and our PCI and what we can do is very much driven by budget. And so if, we have more budget, we can aim for a higher PCI. We felt the 73 was attainable with the budgets that we have.
Okay, so if you were to ever go out to the public for a sales tax increase, you would want to tell them that, hey, your roads are going to stay at 73. If you want them at 80, pass the bond. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, pass the bond. Yeah, people will love that. Any other questions, comments, or input? Well, thank you for that presentation, folks. We really appreciate that. Roads, who knew? Such a big deal. We got a lot going on in our burgeoning and growing city. And I know for my street in my neighborhood, they put the chip stuff down on my road last year, and it was quite a process. So I appreciate all the hard work that you guys have put in. Yes. I thought I saw a hand there. Sorry. Okay. Moving down our agenda then, we have our next meeting. Oh, is there anything that we forgot that anyone needs to bring up at this time? If so, please do so. If not,
I have one, and I see it's on next month, the
our
fiber.
anticipated topics for our next meeting. I was going to go over that, but yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, because it is on the next meeting, the fiber, but I am already getting calls already again, like I did last year. So when they're coming in on the street lights, is that going to be is that Lumen doing the fiber? Eventually they'll bore the ground, but it's going up on the street lights, or is that something different?
Carly, I don't know. I'm not
think
familiar
there's-
with it on a
Yeah,
street.
I don't think there's been aerial fiber that I've seen. We've seen a lot of different telecoms, boring conduit. Yeah, if you have a specific area, Councilmember Bergan, maybe we can look and see what permit's been pulled and the details. But I think the fiber item that I was planning to bring forward is more related to our signal system and city facilities. So it's different than the broadband discussion. And that item actually, for me, might slip until April because I'm trying to move forward an IGA with CDOT for some fiber sharing opportunities.
Okay, so then could we get a presentation on just the other one?
Yeah, and Councilmember Bergan, if it's okay, we're actually meeting internally. I think you're talking about the trenching within residential areas for the fiber access, improved fiber access, I think is what I would call it. We are meeting internally to discuss that, look at some options, and we also will be meeting with one of the fiber companies. So we can get a presentation for you in a couple months.
It's not necessarily the micro trenching versus the boring. It's just somebody is seeing stuff being put on the Excel street lights. But he mentioned 5G.
Carly, do you think that's the
I was gonna guess APD's license plate reader project, possibly. There's a lot of different things that it could be.
Yeah.
It could be a small cell. It could be a small cell antenna as well.
That's what it is.
Yeah, that's probably
Small
what.
cell.
Yep.
Councilmember Bergan, let us check back internally. This
Yeah.
might be licensing agreements as well. So we'll reconcile and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Chair Hancock, could I just ask a quick question and then I'll just probably have to take this one offline with them, but I just had a quick question for staff. So along Smoky Hill, and I can do a council request on this, but I just want a yes or no. When on Smoky Hill from Tufts all the way down to Smoky Hill and Chambers, I know you guys are doing some public work stuff at the corner of that intersection lately, but I've noticed that whole area, most of that area is iced on the sidewalks. Whose responsibility? Can you just tell me whose responsibility it is? And then I'll do a council request or talk offline a little bit more about it. But whose responsibility is to make sure that the ice is not it's bad. The last storm, it was bad.
And Councilmember Lawson, I think that's also along Shenandoah where the students walk to Smoky Hill.
Yep.
I noticed that yesterday too. So I don't know if Lynn knows that off the top of her head, but let us check and we'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Chair Hancock. I just wanted to bring that up a little bit. So thank you.
That's fine. Absolutely. Absolutely. While you think about it, bring it up. That's important. Are there any other miscellaneous matters for consideration that we need to discuss at this time? Okay. Seeing none, as you have seen the anticipated topics for next meeting, if those seem kind of fluid, then I'm certain that we'll go ahead and adjust as we need to. But as you can see, it's a master plan. If that moves forward, the CDOT fiber neighborhood traffic calming, which I've been getting a lot of questions about that, traffic narrowing, speed bumps, etc., speed lane reduction, and the 68th maintenance IGA with Denver. So those are the things that are up. If you have something that you want to inquire about, please let me know as the chair, and then I will discuss it with staff so that we can move that forward and have a discussion on it. Is there anything else from anyone today that we missed? Okay, seeing none, then our next meeting will be March 21st. Same bat time, same bat channel. And with that, I will give you the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Councilmember Lawson, can you hang on and we'll talk about your Ward 5 meeting? Is that okay? Okay, perfect.
Cindy, I forgot we had arranged that. So.
No worries. I just want to make sure to
going on
catch
for me
while you're here.